Welcome, everybody, to 10 Minutes with Barb and Ron. And boy, do we have a guest for you.
That we do. Who are you, by the way?
I'm Ron Rogers with OCALI, director of the UDL Center.
And I'm Barb Gentili Green. So good to be here. And I'm excited to introduce Steve Shapiro, who's somebody who I just met this year when I moved to Bexley. And you know how, Ron, you have these people in your career and in your life when they're talking and you find yourself shaking your head? That's Steve for me. Like Steve talks and I'm like, yeah, he's on it. So Steve, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and we'll go from there.
Well, thanks for including me. I'm glad to be talking with you both. So I'm just about 1 month away from concluding a 34-year career in public education. I spent 31 of those years in the classroom, mostly as a high school social studies and humanities teacher, 18 of them as a facilitator and the program director in Mosaic, which is a high school humanities program, cross-district program here in Central Ohio, public school program. And recently I'm finishing up my career as the leader of experiential learning for Bexley City Schools. I'm also a podcaster. I create a podcast called Experience Matters, which focuses on experiential learning, and that gives me a platform to share a lot of my thoughts and ideas about education.
Yeah, and Steve, if you are okay with it, we will link that website to our show notes so that folks can go to that. Sure. So, wow, that's awesome. You're looking at retirement. I'm not there yet, but so just tell us a little bit about like what you're most proud of with your educational career and, what you're kind of hoping continues on, even though you may be retiring.
Sure. Well, I think, it's an interesting point to get to the end of a teaching career because it's a real time for reflection and a time to look back. And so I left the classroom 3.5 years, 4 years ago when I left Mosaic. And so that was a real important time for me to look back. And one of the things that was most appreciated, one of my valued, cherished possessions, if the house caught on fire, I'd get my dog, I'd grab my framed Springsteen lithograph, and I'd grab this right here. And this is a book that Kim and Maggie, who I worked with at Mosaic, put together. They just reached out to a lot of former students and said, hey, Steve's retiring. What do you want to say to him? And so this book is just full of photographs and letters that kids wrote to me. And so, as I've gotten close to retirement, I've spent more time just kind of flipping through those pages and reminding myself of sort of what the impact and what the meaning of my time as an educator has been.
Are there certain themes that are showing up?
Of course there are. I mean, I think one of the things that for me has always been important is, I, from the beginning of my career, knew that my job was not teaching kids stuff. I mean, I've been teaching so long that there was no such thing as state content standards or state standardized tests or any of that kind of stuff. But still, I knew that my job wasn't to plow through the textbook, and my job wasn't to make sure kids knew this stuff about But what it was about shaping kids' sense of possibility, helping kids understand the world in different ways. And so, I could share a couple things kids said that I thought that really resonated with me. One, this was a student said, you taught me that learning doesn't have to be confined to a classroom. Instead, learning is a way of life. You created what most people thought to be an impossible dynamic where teenagers could learn through adults and adults could learn through teenagers. And I think that kind of spoke to kind of how I thought about what my job was. I mean, another one, this student said, you taught me to look at the world differently, to question the way things around me work, to always evolve and grow, and most importantly, how to truly listen to other people's perspectives in life. And so I think one of the themes that I see in my work is that I was really committed to growing how students engaged in the world and how they thought about the world. I mean, the content was only a vehicle for kids to think about, how do I know the world? How do I consider it? How do I see someone else's point of view? How do I engage in the world? And so that was something that I really prided myself in, was helping kids sort of think about and know the world differently and see learning as this ongoing journey, a continuation that they'll always be a part of, not something that they're doing in school to get a grade.
I'm amazed, Steve. The book's worth $1 million. I bet. I'll bet you were very tearful when you received it, and I don't know how you can get through it each time without having so many thoughts and tears and hopefully no regrets.
No, I don't, and I think I laugh because I look and I think nobody said oh, Steve, you helped me remember what the constitutional amendments were, or Steve, you told me what the elements of the Civil War were. I mean, that's never what it is that people walk away with. I mean, what people walk away with is something much, much deeper than that. And I guess I feel really fortunate is that I recognize that in my career. And so I didn't spend my time thinking that that was my job. I always knew that my job was something much bigger than that. And I think that it's one of the reasons that I'm often critical of the content standards and standardized testing is because I think it convinces teachers, especially teachers who have come into the profession in the last 20 years, that their job is to teach those content standards, which is like, that's part of it. But if we don't see our job as something much larger than that, what a sad missed opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was there something somebody said, or was it just a part of you where you realized really what the core of your career was going to be about? Like,
yeah, I mean, I was probably an unlikely teacher because I thought most of what I learned in school was pretty irrelevant. So I definitely didn't go into teaching to replicate that. I always knew, and in fact, I made the decision to become a teacher while I was on a round the world trip myself. I was on a 9-month excursion, and about halfway through, I was like, you know what I really want to do is shape kids' futures and have an impact. And I think, there were a couple of things in this book that spoke to like helping kids think about possibilities. Like this one girl wrote, "Thank you, Steve, for teaching me that I could become an interesting person only by doing interesting things. I live my life like it's an adventure, and I push past my fears, remembering that life is short, and one day I will hopefully look back and have no regrets." And this is a girl, as a high school student 10 years ago, and then she ended up moving to Bhutan and studying Buddhism in a monastery. I mean, another girl, similar kind of theme. Another girl wrote, she talked about they had a guest speaker in from Nepal, really interesting, fascinating guy. And she said, "I don't remember anything he said." She said, "But I remember that when you introduced him, you said that one of your former students from your first year of teaching had met him also, and like was so moved that she wanted to move. She moved to Nepal for 4 months and worked for a nonprofit." And she said that, "I don't remember the speaker's words. I'll always remember how proud you were of this other student for deciding to do something so different and go after her dream, however unconventional." And this student now lives in Israel. She's lived in Israel for the last 8 years. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, seeing like when you can model for kids and expose kids to the idea like life is full of possibility. And so some of the really rewarding things we're seeing kids who had lived lives that were full of excitement, engagement, and curiosity and passion that might not have happened had they not been exposed to possibilities in my learning space.
I think so much about sort of the mental health crisis that we're in. And like, if we could get more kids that could realize that, like, there's something more important than sitting in this class and doing better than the kid next to you, right? Like that is so powerful for a kid to realize that there's more than this class and this test and this school.
100%. And I think, a lot of it also is like how students feel, how you make students feel in a learning space. So there was one that I loved. This girl said, "Whenever we thought about you, we always talked about how you made us feel at such a volatile and sometimes lonely time in our lives. You made us feel calm, heard, respected, loved, included. These are the things that some of us students hadn't experienced before until we awkwardly stumbled into your classroom." Again, that saying, people forget what you tell them, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. Mm-hmm. And I think, again, sometimes as we race through the curriculum, we forget that these are human beings sitting in front of us. And so, I hope that anyone listening to this who's an educator will just, again, remain in touch with the fact that, like, the connection to the human beings in front of you is really so much more important than anything in the book. I'll read one last passage from this. This a student said, "You always inspired me to get out in the world and make a difference and spend time on what truly matters, human connection and love." And like, I can guarantee you, Barb and Ron, that was not in the state content standards. Nobody told me that what I was supposed to teach kids is that human connection and love is the most important thing in the world. But I guess I hope that teachers have the courage to know that and recognize that and let that lead their practice, as opposed to get caught in the machine that tells us that we're, producing data points for a district report card.
Mm-hmm. You know, Ron, isn't that like we have been in so many sessions where we've asked teachers to reflect back on why did they get into the profession?
Yeah.
That is what they want to do.
Yes.
But yet they feel so constrained by what you just talked about. And so I love that you're like helping us remember, like, that's why we got into education. Like, don't let go of that.
I agree, Barb, and I think that in some ways being a great teacher is an act of courage. It's almost like an act of sort of passive resistance against a system that is kind of like this hyper-capitalistic system that's teaching us we're producing results and measurable outcomes. But it takes a certain courage to say, you know what, I refuse. I refuse to compromise my humanity, and I especially refuse to compromise the humanity of my students in the name of that pursuit. And so I think we all have to, as educators, have to have the courage of our convictions to really care for these individuals, these human beings, and not get caught up in the machine.
Mm. And Ron, you have not been able to witness this, but I have witnessed Steve with that courage. Like, and he is very gentle, but yet dedicated to that message. Like he, you know, I that's what I shake my head when I'm listening to him, because he displays that courage in such a kind, I believe, very kind, forward and thoughtful way. So good model there.
Wow. Well, I always have to be the unfortunate one. We have 1 minute left. And Steve, the question that I had for you was the following, and I think you've already answered it in full. And that is, when I listen to you and watch you, you seem like that new giddy teacher that just can't wait to get into the classroom. Yet you are on year 34 and you're getting ready to retire. And my question was going to be to you, how in the world did you keep this great, you know, this excitement going? And I think you've answered it, but if you want to add any more before we go, we're willing to listen.
I mean, it's the core of who I am. It's like foundational beliefs that I carry with me. And I would say that even though I'm walking away from the 34-year career where I go to work every day, I continue to plan to work with school districts that are interested in making learning meaningful and powerful for kids. I'm interested in continuing to work with both, whether it's as a keynote speaker or as a professional development source or as a leadership coach. I'll be doing a lot of that work to continue to support educators who are committed to this vision.
Man, thank you so much. And Ron's out.
Thank you, Steve. I'm glad to hear that you're going to continue your really lifelong mission. And I'm excited that maybe our paths will continue to cross in that. So thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Barb's out.
It's a pleasure. Steve's out.
Bye. YouTube, please subscribe, like, comment, and share.